This is Season 2 of the Brew and Ink podcast.
All right, and welcome, faithful listeners, back to another Brew and Ink podcast episode. Tonight, we have got with us Britt, Evie, Bill, Sarah, and Katie. So we got everyone here tonight. We got a full table, and we're happy to have you guys with us, our faithful listeners. We've got 2 more stories of flash fiction for you guys to vote on. Oh, we also have the announcement of the winner from last time around.
I was going to ask.
It was close. It was like 57 to like 40-something%. Right. And Evie took the win.
Really?
Yes.
I had no idea.
All right.
So congratulations. You will be
you.
moving on to the all-female cast of the final flash fiction. So tonight, you will get a story from both Sarah and Katie, and then you'll have to vote on those 2 to see who will move on to face against Evie.
Mm-hmm.
But first,
But what?
we're going to get some venting out of the way.
Oh, okay.
Yes. We want...
Pre-Thanksgiving rage.
Yeah. Yes. We're not going to talk about the things we're thankful for. We're going to talk about the things that have gotten under our skin or we would maybe be less thankful for.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with movies, books, anything like that that maybe people popularly like, but personally we don't. For me, I'm going to start with the Batman vs. Superman movie that came out recently and pair that up with the Suicide Squad. Both of those movies I could have done without, or I wish they had done better. Batman vs. Superman had a lot of things in there that just made me go, why are they like forcing this to happen? Like, okay, I get it. You're making a big deal about like, okay, that you both have a mom named Martha. That's great, but like that wasn't.
Spoiler alert. Come on, man. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's been made fun of in a lot of
Yeah.
videos. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know the percentage of people that liked it versus I may be picking one that most people don't like, but I've got a good group of friends that love
Yeah,
the
a
movies.
lot of people liked it. Yeah.
And they didn't do it for me. The dialogue fell short for me. Even like the moments that were supposed to be like the big moments, just they fell flat.
Yeah.
From my perspective, and it was kind of the same way with Suicide Squad. There was a couple characters that were well done. I like the big actors were good, but everyone was really into the Joker character. His character. I mean, granted, they cut out a lot of the scenes that he was in, but it wasn't, to me, it wasn't my favorite Joker character, and everyone kind of really loves what he did with it. But yeah, that's me. That's my rant. I'm done. How about you, Bill?
I got 2, and they're both books, and they're both movies. And if I had to read the book, I would have quit in the first chapter. Okay, that's how bad they were.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to start with the one that everybody hates, and that is the second Twilight story. And the googly eyes that they just stare at each other with for long parts. And I had to go to this because my daughter was like 13, and she had to see the second Twilight movie, so somebody had to take her. And we all went at Christmas, and it took us 2 hours to get out of the parking lot after the movie. And it was just the whole time we're sitting there going, that was the worst thing I've ever seen. And we can't get it off. Our whole family, we were just trying to get it away from us and push it. But we're stuck in this car for 2 hours after that movie, regretting ever having gone.
The whole experience.
Now, was that a script issue or just bad actors?
It was both. It was both. The story was horrible, and the actors, the way it was directed was horrible. The way they could have cut half, they could have cut 3/4 of the movie out.
Yeah.
And it would have been a nice little short interlude story, a 30-minute segment for TV or something. But to make a movie out of that was ridiculous. And if I were reading the book, I would have put it down in the first chapter and I'm not big into burning books, but it's possible. You know? And then the second one is one that's just tortured me ever since I first saw it because it was supposed to be so good and it was such a lame story. And I understand it was a real story. It was a personal story. But it was just Marley and Me.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I know some people who love that movie.
Right.
Good luck. I'm sorry. That's not my kind of people. I probably will never be seen in public with them because I hated that story. It was so unbelievably boring. I understand. It was somebody had a dog and they loved him and they grieved losing him. I really understand that. And, you know, I get that. But to make a story and a movie out of that, you know, and the whole, you know, you could have made a story about the grieving process afterwards, and it would have been much more interesting.
Can I just say that on all the lists I've just looked up for the worst books of all time, every single one of the Twilight books is on every single list.
Fun fact: Twilight is 10 years old this year.
Wow.
Seriously?
Wow. That is a fun fact.
So there, I'm done griping, man.
So, what about
that
you,
was
Katie?
a different movie.
Well, you all make fun of me for how much I don't like Hunger Games. I guess that's what we'll be talking about today.
I won't make fun of you.
No, we won't.
I've read all 3 books. I read them while I was in Israel, which was cool. But, and I've seen the first movie. And the books were just boring, and Katniss is a very dislikable character. And part of that is probably a bias against first-person narratives told from a female perspective, because there have been so many, and I think many of them were spawned by the Hunger Games, but they're all just boring characters who act like pretentious. Can I cuss?
If you need to.
Pretentious bitches.
Yeah,
Sorry
Noise cut
for a
it out.
younger audience.
that's borderline
Sorry,
cussing
Mom.
anyway.
They allow that on the radio.
And the first book is just boring. It never really felt like the stakes were real. In the movie, this was one case where I thought that the movies actually improved the narration, in part because Katniss wasn't telling it all herself. I did like the second and third books better because there was more stuff at stake. There was something personal involved with suddenly the government is like really cracking down on Katniss and now she's got to pay attention. But that also brought in, I don't know if you could consider it a trope, I suppose so, but a protagonist having no agency. Katniss is very much a character where things happen to her and she reacts and doesn't take charge for herself, which seems kind of a contrast because she's kind of an action hero character. But the outside of the Hunger Games, she's just a pawn, and she never really escapes that, and that's just the most boring story to write about
And read about.
Yeah.
And this stuff where people are being used by other people, that happens in real life, and that's kind of relatable, but it doesn't make for an interesting story. In the movie, I really loved the makeup artist guy. I forget who he is, that singer.
Lenny
Lenny
Kravitz.
Kravitz.
Lenny Kravitz.
yeah.
He was sharp.
Yeah.
And that's about the only good thing in the movie, too.
There you go.
Woody
But-
Harrelson did a good job.
Oh yeah, Woody
Did
Harrelson.
a good
I don't know
job.
who that is.
The drunk.
Oh,
He
yeah,
was-
yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was decent. That's like his character in the book was cool too. He was dealing with his own stuff, but he was never a pawn like Katniss, and just her griping and angsting in the third book is just a bore. Don't let your characters get involved in pining away for multiple people, because it's unrealistic and it's silly.
You're really selling it.
Yeah.
We're all depressed now because we read the books too.
Yeah.
Evie, how about you? You got a book, story, movie?
Oh, I've got some. I'm gonna wreck a whole bunch of people right now, but I'm gonna list off 3 and we'll talk about one. Like, I can't stand Pokemon, and the idea of Pokemon on the go is stupid. Okay, that's one. Second one is, don't kill me, Steven. Lord of the Rings. I can't stand Lord of the Rings.
Oh, it's yeah.
It is long, and it's nothing but battle scenes. Yeah. So, but the all-time is the movie Spaceballs, which my husband made me watch all the way through without telling me that. He didn't tell me what it was about. He's like, we're going to watch this movie. And I thought it was serious for like the first 5 minutes. And I was like, wait, what's going on? And I'm already not, like, I grew up in Germany, so I'm really far behind on Star Wars. So on top of that, that was the dumbest movie and the biggest waste of 2 hours of my life, and I will never, ever get those back. So
Good old Mel Brooks.
I want to hear more about your hate for Lord of the Rings, because I have that same sentiment.
Now, okay, I am also biased. I will fully admit, as an ADHD child trying to sit through a, 3-hour and something movie was never going to happen. And so I would try to watch it, and then every 2 seconds I was like, wait, what's going on?
So do you dislike the movies? Have you read the books?
I tried to read the books, and it just...
They're thick.
They're thick.
Thick reading.
I got, like, it felt like there was, like, some really good stuff, and then, like, 50 pages of battle.
The first book, did you get past the first book?
No.
The first book, to me, is the most meandering of them all.
Really?
Oh yeah, I don't think he knew what he was writing until about halfway through the first book. Like it just doesn't feel like he knows. Like he's like, oh, and then they show up at Tom Bombadil's house,
Right.
And then there's the green trees, and then there's the more green trees,
Exactly.
and you're like, because I tried to read them when I was a kid, and I could never get past the first book because of that reason. And then once I finally did, they were amazing.
And for a little perspective here, when the first movie came out and we went to it, I literally went down the line that was waiting to get in, and I talked to the different couples that were there. And in every case, the guys had read the books, and the girls had never heard of it.
Right.
I heard about it. I just didn't want anything to do with it.
But that was, but at that point, all of these guys had read these books, and the girls hadn't. So
Ladies were coming for Orlando Bloom.
That's right.
Yeah.
y'all are
that's what
coming
it
from a
was.
slightly different place when it comes to reading these and being excited about these stories. For some reason, these stories really appealed to guys a lot more.
Because it's a call to action. It's a call to act. Like, and I do see that. Like, it's a massive call to action. That's why it's like, here's the quest, 50 pages of fighting. Here's the next quest, 50 pages of writing. And that calls out every man to be like, yeah.
The hero.
Yes, the hero, the quest, we're going to save this whoever.
And girls are like,
I don't got time for this.
I do know a lot of women who love The Lord of the Rings, by the way.
I do too.
But you're right. It's more. Especially before the movies came out, it was definitely a guy
special
thing.
sort of
Right.
nerd.
But
It was definitely guys.
I definitely do think that it does play a role, being as ADHD as I was. And ADHD, for me, I had reading comprehensions, like, failures. And so the idea of reading a long book or sitting through a long movie was already agony to the fact that I already thought the story was stupid.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Understandable.
it was not going to win.
there you go.
But, I still think I hate Spaceballs more.
Oh, gosh. I remember when I thought Spaceballs was funny. And then I watched it with my family.
Again,
and
later,
I cringed
Yeah.
all the way through.
You're
going,
like, no.
Oh.
That happened to me with Adam Sandler movies.
It's
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
They're all still.
I
bad.
cringed. I was like, oh, this is not funny.
Nope.
Now, Blazing Saddles, on the other hand.
Blazing
That's
Saddles.
great.
I
That
watched
is
that
great.
for the first time the other week when Caleb wasn't here.
What did
Because
you
he
think?
wouldn't watch it with me.
What did you think?
It was terrible. I loved it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm never
terribly
watching
bad.
it again, but
Right.
I'm glad I have the experience.
Gene Wilder.
This cultural touchstone.
Right.
Wilder, man.
Yep. So moving on, Sarah, you had another cultural classic that you wanted
Ooh.
to.
I don't know if I should go there.
Do it, do
I
it, do it.
don't
Come
want people
on.
stalking me down and killing me with their lightsabers.
This is the controversial episode. Let's do it.
I hate Star Wars. I'm saying it. Put it on the record. I hate it so much.
I
with
agree.
every fiber of my being.
And
Very
moving
good.
on to Brit. No,
Edit. I mean, I don't get it. And I have a friend that's really into it. I went to the movies with him. He wanted to see it in 3D, which was probably the only cool thing about the movie.
Which one are you referring to?
I'm not sure. Because honestly, they all literally feel the same.
There were lasers.
Everybody's
Lasers,
going
there's
that
some
direction.
weird dusty things going on, and some people in weird tunics. The only thing I like about Star Wars is the bar scene with all the weird creatures. If the whole movie was like that and Jabba the Hutt, whatever his name is,
Yeah.
Hut.
I like that guy, even though he's totally evil. But he just has a cool voice and he shakes when he talks, which I like. That's pretty much it. The creatures, but I think I just missed the bus on the craze because a friend of mine was like, "You don't understand. When all this first came out, it was so creative and different, and the animations that they did
The
were so
technical stuff is really good.
Yeah.
right. So like now that we have like literal, you can look at things that look like people that are CGI. I mean, it's not as cool, right? But I think I just missed the bus. But as far as books, there's two classic books that I hate that were like, classics, right? As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner
Wow.
and Anything by Jane Austen. I cannot stand it. I don't know if it's because she says things that she could say in one sentence that she says in an entire page.
Pages.
I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you still talking about this thing? Like, I cannot deal with it. And I've given it an honest try. I actually own a copy of As I Lay Dying because I still have not been able to actually get through it. And one of these days,
I loved it in
I
high
will.
school. I don't know why I loved it in high school, but
I
there's
don't,
something about
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I've tried to read it so many times and I'm like, it's just words on this. I don't even know what these words mean. It's just, he puts them together all weird. And I'm an intelligent person and maybe that's why I don't like it because it defeated me. But yeah, there are some classics that I tried to read that I could not.
Yeah, Jane Austen was from that time period where there was no TV, right? So, like, there was that whole thing where it's like you would just sit around and read all night. And so, yeah, so some of those older books would go on and on and on
But
about
I like
some
Dickens.
things.
I like Charles
That's
Dickens'
true.
books.
That's true.
Huh.
Dickens
Like,
did the same thing.
Well,
I find Jane Austen to be a
Dickens-
lot livelier.
Dickens, every chapter was a serialized story.
Yeah.
His stuff
Yeah.
was serialized. So
I don't like everything he
it's
wrote,
it's
but
made to read
Great
quickly.
Expectations
It's
I
got a
really like.
pace to it that's really steady and it's made to read quickly. And it actually fits really well with our television and movie culture where we're used to
Serialized
stories in
stuff,
40
yeah.
minutes,
Yeah.
And not now. You got like Netflix and stuff. Stories are
Yeah.
about an hour,
Yeah,
sometimes
maybe.
longer.
But you get what I'm saying. You got a fixed
Yeah,
amount
yeah.
of time. You got a story, and then that fits into a bigger story. That's what Dickens did.
Yeah.
On a regular basis.
But for the most part, I can find some good in pretty much anything, even if it's crap. But not Twilight.
Or
Yeah.
Star Wars. Because as we have all learned, interesting technology does not make a good story.
True.
Or interesting characters.
But I got to
or
tell you,
good
in
dialogue.
1976, when we went to see that for the first time in the theater, it blew us away.
See what I mean?
It
This is what I'm
blew
talking
us
about.
away.
Well, let me also just say, in the
Years.
film industry's top 100 movies of all time, Empire Strikes Back is in the top 10. Let's just say.
I will say that one is not as
like,
bad as some of
Empire
the
Strikes
others.
Back is one of the most well-made movies ever. But a lot of the Star Wars movies that aren't the original two aren't really. You're right;
Just
they're not very well
trashy.
done. All right, so my turn.
Actually, it is.
Okay, so there's a book that I'm thinking of that a lot of people try to tell me and is like it's almost like if you're cool, you have to have read this book, and it's amazing. And I love Neil Gaiman, and so I tried it, and it was American Gods, and everyone was like, "This is the best movie ever, no, the best book ever, and you like fantasy, and you'll love this." And I started it, and I went, I can't get into it. I got about 50 or 100 pages into it. And I just went, I don't like any of the characters. That's part of the point. You're not supposed to like them. But I was just like, no, I'm sorry. I just couldn't. But that's like one of the cool books that a lot of like the writers and everybody's like, American Gods is awesome. And so maybe it is, and I just don't get it. Not that I don't get it, but I just couldn't get into it in that sense. Avatar.
Oh, that was going to be one
Which
of my...
one?
Oh,
Avatar.
Yeah, the movie.
The movie.
James Cameron's
Yeah,
Avatar?
James
Yeah.
Cameron.
Okay.
No,
If
I
it-
got to the end of it, and it broke all these records, and everybody loved it. Oh, have you seen it? And we got groups together, and we saw it in 3D, and we saw it in the IMAX, and we did and I was like, it's Dances with Wolves
Yeah.
in space.
With blue people.
Yeah.
It's the most derivative thing. It literally is beat for beat with the movie. Like, it is the most derivative movie I've ever seen in my life.
What tore me up about it, it was that
Hated it too.
immediately I recognized the visuals as coming from Out of the Silent Planet.
Oh, yeah.
Some of that too.
I thought
Yeah.
everything that they produced with all those great visuals was straight from Out of the Silent Planet, the book.
Yeah.
And that upset me. That kind of offended me as a major theft there. That was a real
And-
rip-off.
Just one more I'll mention quickly is there was a movie. A lot of people probably don't know it, but there was a movie in the early '90s called Point Break with Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves, and all my guy friends thought this was the coolest movie they have ever seen. And I was in the theater, and something happened in the middle of the movie, and I went, "What are you doing?" Like, it was such a dumb thing. That it ruined the whole rest of the movie. I'm like, this could have been over like 45 minutes
We're
ago.
done with this, right?
Like I hate movies like that where there's a choice that something happens and you're like, oh my God, like they could have just like totally ended the whole thing right here. And now like everything after that's like, y'all are stupid. Like the whole rest of the movie.
Right.
So Point Break is another one for me.
Fun fact, that's Iron Man's nickname for Thor in the Marvel.
Is Point Break?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those would be mine.
And with that, I think we should jump into our flash fiction stories. We're going to start with Sarah with the Ventriloquist Daughter, a myth.
Nestled among the foggy, cragged hills of the Sierra de Neiba lay the village of Labrona, a sleepy, quiet town, daunting in its static, steady pace. Some say the feel of the town is like that heady, floating moment in a dream right before you awaken, where time must hesitantly cease its freestyle play. It was in Labrona that Sophia Abreu took her first screaming gasp as she entered the world. Born to Maria and Felipe Abreu, Sophia was their treasure, their regalo especial. A happy family, they took their Sophia all over the town, showing her off to neighbors and engaging her in the wide and colorful world beyond her home. As she grew, her father slowly introduced her to his dolls. These were not cheap play dolls that you dressed up to enact domestic duties like cleaning and yelling and crying. No, these were special dolls, talking dolls. Philippe delighted Sophia with the dolls, his figures he called them, and they would play for hours, making up skits and plays well into the night. Maria, Sophia's mother, joined in the games in the beginning, but over time, she pulled further away. Sophia shuddered at the distant and sad look in her mother's eye whenever Philippe would pull the figures out. "Want to play, Sophia?" Philippe would say, a large grin stretching across his broad, tan face. Maria's eyes would darken, her countenance grown cold as she left them to play alone. Confusion swirled inside of Sophia's small, childish soul as she longed for her mother's smile. Maria had no joy, though, and she stayed locked in her bedroom day after day. Her endless weeping echoed through the thin wooden door of her bedroom and out into the empty hallways of their home. Philippe also began to withdraw, spending longer hours behind the workbench in his study. He tinkered and drilled and sawed away at the wood and trimmings that would eventually become his figures. Sophia ached for the love of her parents, pulling stunts and tricks in desperation to gain their attention. But they never noticed her, and they retreated further into the dark corners of rooms and minds and hearts away from her. Philippe's long hours at his workbench and Maria's endless weeping eventually drove Sophia away. Though her heart ached with its breaking, she held hope for her family. She carried this hope into the valley forest that surrounded her mountain town. She spent time in nature, sitting and talking to the animals, asking them for help. Did they know how to bring the light back from the darkness? Did they know why her mom was so sad? What about her father? He had been doing many shows around town with his figures, making people laugh and clap. Why, with all that laughing, wasn't her father also happy? The animals listened well, but the answers remained hidden. I must know these answers. I will do anything to help my family, Sophia spoke to herself, exasperated. Anything? A voice rang out in response. Stunned, Sophia sat up, her heartbeat quickening. She glanced all around her, but saw only the same mute animals, nothing new. Hello? Who's there? Sophia's voice cracked as she forced the words out. From the darkness of the bushes behind her came the source of the voice. A creature with a body like a panther and slick black fur that glittered as it moved towards her. There is nothing to fear. I am here to help you. The creature spoke, but not the way the humans speak. The voice bellowed inside of Sophia's head. She tried not to listen, but it was impossible. You asked for help. I come to those who seek me. Sophia knew the stories people told about the hills and valleys being filled with spirits of all kinds. The one she heard about the most was El Baca. She had never believed them. She thought them to be silly stories told to scare children into behaving as adults wanted. She thought about this offer from the creature and then spoke. Well, yes, it appears I did call for help. You see, there is a darkness covering my family. I want the light to come back. My parents barely notice me anymore, and I miss them. Can you make them notice me again? Can you make it like it used to be when I was younger and there was always laughing and playing? Sophia stared at her feet, nervous as she spoke in her mind to the creature. Darkness, yes. There is darkness everywhere, my child. One must be vigilant to protect against it. And of course I can help. My great power allows me to open many doors that most beings cannot even see. To help you, though, I require something from you. Are you able to accept that my help comes with a cost? The creature gently paced around Sophia. She was desperate, so she agreed. Yes, I am willing to accept. I must. No cost is too great for my family's happiness. The creature licked its lips, satisfied. Excellent. We have an agreement, then. This pact we have now made cannot be broken, as it is sealed in the realm of the spirit. By my word, tomorrow everything will be different, and your mother and father will never ignore you again. Is this the outcome you desire? The creature was now at Sophia's side, so close she could feel its heat. Sophia spoke, for the last time, one single word, yes. The next morning, Philippe awoke, groggy from a long night of shows around town. He rolled over to find his wife in bed with him. They hadn't slept in the same bed for months. How odd. He lay, holding his wife, breathing her in. He then rose to go to Sophia's room. He wanted to share with her all about his shows around town. Her bedroom door was closed. Odd. She was usually up reading or playing by this time. He put his ear to the door. It was complete silence. He tried the knob, and the door swung right open. His daughter's black hair lay over the pillow, but something wasn't quite right. His daughter's black hair lay over the pillow, but something wasn't quite right in her positioning. Philippe moved closer. She looked stiff and inanimate. Her vacant eyes stared up, unblinking. His daughter was no longer made of flesh and bone, but of wood and glue. He dropped to his knees wailing, clutching his daughter's stiff wooden body to his tear-stained chest.
Brew Inc. is now syndicated on SeriousWriter.com. See them at SeriousWriter.com for resources, articles, videos, topical classes, and now a podcast, the Brew Inc. Podcast, because we're syndicated on SeriousWriter.com. All right, here's Katie with the Ventriloquist Daughter, Humor.
Class, listen up, called Miss P, the first grade teacher at Elm Branch Elementary. Next Friday, we'll be having a show and tell. Please bring one thing that you can share a story about. She went on, but Tabitha Tuckett, who sat in the back seat, wasn't listening. A show and tell, she thought. Finally. When class was dismissed for recess, Tabitha ran to where Susanna and Alex were swinging. "Did you hear that?" she crowed. "We're having a show and tell, and I'm going to bring Rigsby and prove to you once and for all that my dog can talk." Susanna scowled and kicked the swing higher. "You can't bring a dog to school," she said. "I asked Miss P and she said I could. Heather's bringing her naked cat, too," Tabitha retorted. Susanna shook her head as she swung backward. "Anyway, everyone knows dogs can't talk." "Rigsby can, and I bet that your dog would talk too if you just stopped and listened. Dad always said that lots of things speak if you just be quiet and listen." Tabitha wiped her nose and pushed her glasses higher. "I'm bringing Rigsby, and then you'll see." "Dad! Dad! Daddy!" Tabitha burst into the house, the show and tell sign-up held aloft in one hand, her pink and purple backpack clutched in the other. Mr. Tuckett, her father, looked up from his desk in the side room. Rigsby, a brown and white mutt who was lying beside the desk, looked up too. "There's going to be a show and tell on Friday at school. I want to bring Rigsby." "Rigsby," Mr. Tuckett said. "Whatever for?" Rigsby's ears perked. "Where are we going?" Tabitha dropped her backpack in the hall and slid to a stop in front of the dog. She gave him a good scratch behind the ear. Oh, Rigsby said. "I'm bringing Rigsby because I told everyone that he can talk and nobody believes me." In the Tuckett household, Rigsby wasn't the only one who talked. The dishes talked, the furniture talked, the toys talked, and of course the puppets talked too. Of all of them, Tabitha liked hearing Rigsby most. Mr. Tuckett looked over the rim of his glasses at his daughter and then down at Rigsby. "I suppose you'll need me to bring him and introduce him to the class?" Tabitha nodded and grinned. "Yes, please. Anyway, Rigsby talks most when you're around." The rest of the week passed with Tabitha growing more excited as Friday neared. By then, every classmate had heard that Rigsby the talking dog was coming to visit, and their suspicion soon turned into excitement. Except for Susanna, who was bringing her favorite doll and only scowled deeper at the mention of Rigsby. Dogs didn't talk. Finally, Friday arrived. Mr. Tuckett sat in the back of the classroom with Rigsby and Tabitha. Rigsby had been very quiet since they got to the school, on account of Tabitha not wanting to spoil the secret early. Heather showed her naked cat. Alex talked about her model airplane. Susanna's doll was perfect. And then it was Tabitha's turn. With a smile, she bounced to the front of the classroom, followed by Mr. Tuckett and Rigsby. "Hello," she said. "My name is Tabitha Tuckett. This is my dad. And this," she gestured toward the brown and white dog, "is Rigsby. Rigsby talks. Now, Rigsby, will you please say hello to the class?" Mr. Tuckett patted Rigsby's head encouragingly, and then Rigsby spoke. "Hello, Tabitha's class. My name is Rigsby." The whole class stared, gasped, and then broke into excited chatter. "Rigsby," Tabitha said, "what's your favorite thing to do?" Rigsby thumped his tail. "Walks. I love walks, but I also love meeting new people." In the middle of the room, Susanna squinted at Mr. Tuckett and Rigsby. Dogs didn't talk. It must be a trick. But her resolve was wavering as Rigsby answered more questions with surprising alacrity. At the end of the show and tell, she found the Tucketts and Rigsby in the hall. "How did you do it?" She clutched her doll to her chest. "How did you make him talk?" Mr. Tuckett smiled generously. "Why, he learned to do it all himself. It was just us who learned to listen. Have you ever heard your dolls say anything?" Susanna shook her head. "No, Jemima's just a toy." "But toys have things to say too," Tabitha said. "Listen real close. I'll bet she'll say something." Still doubtful, Susanna tucked the doll close to her ear. She waited a moment, and then another, and right before she was about to give up, she heard a squeaky voice say, "Hello, Susanna, it's me, Jemima." She gasped and looked the doll in the eye. "Why haven't you said anything before?" "Because I was waiting for the right time to speak." Tabitha came home that afternoon proud and beaming. Nobody doubted her now, not even Susanna. After dinner, Mr. Tuckett packed his suitcase with his puppets, kissed Tabitha goodbye, and left for his evening gig at the comedy club. The end.
Good job, everybody. Those were some great stories. Now we got to vote on them. Remember to go to our Instagram page, our Facebook page, and our website where you can find all the voting links. And be sure to leave any comments that you have on these stories or what you thought about our flash fiction overall. And we're coming up to an end on that. We're going to take a little break over the holiday season. We'll have a couple episodes to wrap up the month of November, and I think we'll have one in the month of December.
We'll
as
have
well.
a couple like in December,
Yeah.
but then over the Christmas holiday, we'll take a break.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Yay.
And you eat a lot of turkey and mashed potatoes or
We should
ham
have
if
talked
you're a
about
ham
the
guy.
Thanksgiving foods that we hate.
And with that,
And with that,
we're going to encourage
Happy
you guys.
Thanksgiving.
Encourage you guys if if you're out there and you're doing NaNoWriMo, you're wrapping up. Keep going strong, and until next time, raise that glass to inspiration.
you got some plastic. Got some
There's
plastic.
going to be a lot of shuffling around.
So
I'm a very positive person ordinarily, I swear.
Positively.
And mashed potatoes or
We should
ham
have
if
talked
you're a
about
ham
the
guy.
Thanksgiving foods that we hate.
Oh yeah.
None of them.
Cranberry
Yeah.
sauce. Done.
Yeah.
Done
That, I never
I
do
do
that.
not
sweet
like it.
potato casserole.
With the marshmallows? Yeah. I'm with
I'll
you.
eat the marshmallows off the
ruin
top.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I make
Marshmallows
a
are
killer
Stuffing.
sweet.
I don't like stuffing either.
It sucks. I hate turkey.
You know what I don't like? I don't like plain pumpkin pie. Like pumpkin
Oh,
pie that
yeah.
people just don't add any spice or flavor to at all.
Well,
It's-
that's
Oh,
because
no.
those people
Yeah.
should not be cooking.
Yeah. It's
I
like,
agree.
ugh.
Like, who let them in the kitchen?
Right.
Get out.
And it's not pumpkin pie without whipped cream on the top.
Thank
just
you.
Can't
Yes.
do it.
And
Terrible,
If
terrible.
you don't eat pumpkin pie relatively warm, you're crazy. Because
If it's
Gotta
good
warm it
enough,
up.
if it's good enough, I think you can do it.
eat it cold.
Yeah, I think so.
I make a great pumpkin pie that is definitely good cold. But you're not allowed to put whipped cream on that.
Ooh. Uh-oh.
You're out.